Welcome to the Matt Kuda Photography Podcast, a podcast about nature and wildlife photography in your own backyard and throughout the United States. Okay, welcome to the podcast. This is episode 35, Goals for 2017. Well, there are primarily two things that I do every year. One is to create a top 10 list of my photographs, which we've already done. I did that several weeks ago. And the other is to look back at 2016 and create my goals for 2017. I think it's a good exercise. These are two very good exercises for us all to do every year. And bear with me as I explain to you, what goals I was successful at last year and which goals I was not, and then how I'm going to proceed with my photography this year. I think at the very least, it will give you or get the wheels turning in your mind as to how you wish to proceed this year, and maybe give you some ideas in your own goal setting for the year. Okay, well, 2016 was frankly a very difficult year for me. We've already discussed this to some degree in previous episodes. 2016 was a year of exploration. It was a year of just kind of finding out where I needed to go with my photography, which genres I really preferred over, I guess, which subcategories of wildlife photography I preferred versus others. And it was just an explorative year. And because of that, I had some very interesting things happen to my goals for last year. And I don't know if there's anything necessarily wrong with that. I think it's just kind of the way it unfolded. And so what I did was I took a look back at the goals I had for 2016. And it's kind of funny as I looked through this list because honestly, I think I was a little bit over exuberant in my thinking as far as what I can and can't do. So let me look through some of these goals, and I kind of get a chuckle at them. First thing I wanted to do was I wanted to take a trip to Cades Cove to photograph bears, and I wanted to take a trip to St. Augustine Alligator Farm to photograph nesting wading birds. Well, that kind of sort of happened, kind of sort of didn't. I ended up not being able to go to Cades Cove, but I was able to go to Gatorland and to the west coast of Florida to photograph birds. And so I think overall it was a successful substitute for those two things. I was also able to go to Cataloochee twice, which is which is part of the Great Smoky Mountains and very close to Cades Cove. And so I think that was a successful substitute for those goals, and I felt like I met those goals. I also wanted to spend more time working on fine art print sales. I used to have a moderately successful, and I emphasize the word moderately successful, Etsy account where I sold prints and so forth. What I found out though with using Etsy was that it wasn't really maintainable. In other words, the costs involved with renting space on their server, every so many days you had to renew your items out there, and that would cost so many cents. And over time that started piling up. And not only that, but they took a significant amount of commission from each print that I sold. And I started thinking about it and all the work that I put into my prints and all of the, I provided them mounted on mat board, and they came with a certificate of authenticity and they were signed. I went through all of this and I started thinking about the costs involved, and I was just pricing my work way too low. And the fact of the matter is Etsy tends to cater to that type of individual. They cater to photographs selling in the, between $50 and $100 range, maybe even as low as $25 range. That's not going to work for me. And so I started realizing that I really wasn't making enough money at it. Yes, it was fun. It was fun to sell your photographs. But in the end, I ended up decommissioning, pretty much just letting my Etsy site go. Because of that, I was unable to sell a lot of prints. And I'm going to go into later as to why that is. And you're going to find out it's because my website really doesn't support what I want it to support. And so we'll talk about that later. So that didn't work out well. The whole fine art print sale thing really fell flat last year. I had a goal of making a photograph of a bugling elk during the rut. I was able to do that. I have a picture of that. So that was a goal that was successful. I wanted shots of white-tailed deer in the rut. I was not successful. I had a trip planned to Shenandoah National Park. It fell through. I was unable to make those photographs. And so that was kind of a failure. I wanted to make photographs of the eastern phoebe. Now, I don't know why I got all carried away with the eastern phoebe, but I did. And honestly, I never really even tried to make that photograph. It was just it was a goal that was probably a little bit too ambitious, and I really had no strong desire in the end to make the photograph, and so it just never happened. Again, I wanted to find photographs of American black bears in the wild, and that never happened. So, I mean, there are other goals. I also made a lot of personal goals. I wanted to be a better person. I wanted to show more love to other people. I wanted to just really be a better person in general. And I don't know if that happened or not. I think I actually went the opposite way last year. I think I became, in some ways, more uninteresting. I became a flatter, two-dimensional kind of person, kind of edgy and ornery in some ways. And I think I failed miserably in that area. And it pains me to say that. It really does. Now, this year so far has turned out much better in that respect. I think I'm actually being more kind to people. I'm being more helpful to people. And so hopefully that will continue. But the 2016 year, I just really didn't have any majorly exciting things. The highlight of 2016 was certainly my trip to Florida and photographing, particularly at Fort DeSoto and Gatorland as well. That was a very good time, and that was probably the highlight of the year last year. But it kind of went downhill from there. That happened in the early spring, and then the rest of the year just it just happened, okay? And I did enjoy the podcast. I did enjoy taking the podcast to a totally new level. That was exciting, but it really wasn't a huge goal for me going into the year. That was just something I was working on. One of the things as I examined these goals, as I examined 2016, one of the things that I noticed was some of my goals it was almost like I just used a shotgun approach. And some of my goals were very non-specific. Some of them were very specific. Some of them had to do with traveling. Some of them just had to do with finding different species. There wasn't any cohesion. There wasn't anything binding these goals together. And so this year, I've kind of determined that I'm going to take a smaller subset of goals, and I'm going to work on just those goals. I'm not going to have the shotgun approach where I just try all these things and I get overwhelmed. That's not going to happen this year. So, having said that, let's get into some of the goals for this year on the photography side. First and foremost, this spring, I will be making a trip. No, I will be making a trip to Shenandoah National Park. Shenandoah National Park is a 200,000 acre park along the Blue Ridge Mountains, and actually it is about 75 miles from Washington, D.C. It's directly right up Highway 81 as you're going north through Virginia. And it's a very interesting park. It's along the Skyline Drive, very similar to the Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina in many respects. And what you can do in this park is there are several opportunities here. There are waterfalls. There are many species of animals. There is scenic opportunities available. Deer, fawns, rutting deer, just various species of songbirds. There's just lots of opportunities. They have camping areas where you can camp. My main goal this spring is to try to locate newborn fawns that are, just getting their legs and with their mothers. That's kind of my goal. And also to kind of scout the location. This is kind of a scouting trip. So it's probably a day trip up there, just hang out, see what I can see, come on home, and, mission accomplished. Okay, that's one goal. The next goal, which is coming up, is I almost always take a yearly trip north into Pennsylvania, which is where I'm originally from. And I photograph the bald eagles and the ospreys. And I go to this undisclosed location. And the reason I don't want to tell anybody about this location is because the birds at this location are very skittish, first of all. They're very skittish, and I really don't want a lot of people flocking into this area. The other problem with this area is I don't know how many people are familiar with DDT. DDT was a chemical that was sprayed on large portions of the Northeast and other areas to get rid of various insects, such as ticks and so forth. And unfortunately, the side effect of DDT was the loss of a great number of bald eagles and ospreys, particularly. And it was a very sad time in our history. I'm very happy that we're past it. The bald eagles have made a tremendous recovery. The ospreys have made such a tremendous recovery that, it's not uncommon at all to see them now. When I was a child growing up in this area, we simply did not have any ospreys. When you saw an osprey, it was truly an amazing sight because DDT had killed off so many of them that we didn't know if we were going to have any the next year. It was that bad. And so the people up there are very sensitive to the raptors. Very, very sensitive. And probably a little bit too sensitive in my opinion, although honestly, I appreciate their concern, but because of that, I don't like to disclose where I go because it only causes potential problems with people policing the area and so forth. And I don't want the listeners to get involved in that, and I certainly don't want to get involved in that. So that's the why I'm saying it. Not because I don't want you to go photograph them because you're competition. I'm saying it because I want to protect you from that whole situation. So anyway, I'm going up there. Generally, there are quite a few ospreys in the area, and usually one or two or three. Not a huge amount of eagles here, but enough that generally you can enjoy viewing them. Photo Wild is coming up. Photo Wild is going to be the first big trip for the year, and you've heard me talk about Photo Wild before. Photo Wild is a special event that's held by Carolina Raptor Center, just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. I have a special place in my heart for these folks. Carolina Raptor Center is exactly what you might think it is. It's actually a center where raptors, there's actually a raptor hospital here. And they actually will do surgery on the raptors, get them healed, and return them to the wild. That's impressive, okay? That is an amazing thing. Great folks here, great people. And they host this event called Photo Wild. And it's usually 2 to 3 times a year. And what they do is they bring out various raptors, and you can photograph them. It's a great opportunity to get headshots, other close-ups of various types, and so on and so forth. I have no problem with this. A lot of people get all bent out of shape But you got to understand, these raptors, predominantly are brought in here to be healed. And sometimes they cannot be healed. Sometimes they have to have a wing amputated. They may have other reasons why they can't be released into the wild. And what ends up happening is they become ambassadors for the center. And through it all, they're able to obtain, funds, educate the public about raptors and about the importance of protecting them and so on. So I have no problem with these people. These people are doing an amazing work. They're doing much more than most people that sit and complain about it all day long are doing. And for that matter, I applaud them. And it's a great opportunity for us to go and meet other photographers and enjoy the camaraderie at such an event. So, again, I highly recommend finding something like this near you. There are other Raptor centers and Raptor hospitals. Just, Google it. I'm sure you'll find something fairly close. There is another place that I'm thinking about going this year, and it's tentative, I guess, at this point is the best way to say it. There's a place in South Carolina called the Audubon Swamp Garden. Basically, what ends up happening here every spring is you end up with a rookery of wading birds. Very similar to what you would find in Florida. Probably not quite as nice, but I haven't ever been there, so I can't say that. It's located at the Magnolia Plantation in South Carolina, which is, I believe, if I remember correctly, close to Charleston, so it's quite a drive. I'd probably have to stay overnight down there, so it's iffy as to whether I can convince my family that it's worth it. And of course, the other thing that I want to do this year is go to Cataloochee, because that's an annual event now. I go there during the rut. I'll photograph bull elks in the rut, and that's just par for the course these days. Okay, so that's it for trips. Like I said, I've just honed in on these few places, and that's what I want to do. On to gear. What kind of gear am I going to buy this year? Well, I'm still kind of in this whole mode of not buying anything new. Now, if I buy anything this year, it will be a wide-angle lens, because I ended up selling my 10 to 18 millimeter, and so I need something to kind of replace that. But whether that happens sooner versus later, I can't very well say. Most of my money this year that I make with my photography is going directly back into it as money to use on trips, because trips produce images. Okay, gear is a tool. If you can't get in front of a good subject, then there's no sense in having all this gear, right? So that's something that I'm recommending to people more and more is, once you get a few pieces of gear, go ahead and start saving up to go on trips. Very important. One of the other big goals for 2017 for me is I want to take my backyard bird photography studio to the next level and basically reinvent it, if you will. I think I've done a good job of photographing backyard birds. I've got them on a variety of perches and so forth, but I really haven't taken it to the next level. And that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to plan ahead and take it to the next level. It's going to involve probably having more water drips back there, because that attracts more birds. The water drip is simply a mechanism that drips water into a bird bath, for example, and that noise will attract different species of birds that may or may not eat seed. So that's another attractant. The other thing I'm doing is planting more shrubs, bushes, things like that will attract different species of birds, like cedar waxwings or Baltimore orioles or things like that tend to eat more fruit. And so that's a big initiative. The other thing that I'm going to be doing is looking more at the perch, looking at, does this perch really show off the bird? Is it something that accents the photograph? Does it bring balance to the composition? These are things that I'm going to be addressing. I'm going to do it a whole lot more this year, hopefully. That's a big deal to me this year, and it's a relatively inexpensive way to actually, boost your portfolio and really, just take your photography to the next level. Along with that, of course, is more hummingbird photographs. I want to take a lot more hummingbird photographs this year. That's all part of the backyard bird studio. So, the other really big item for 2017 is, most of you probably know that I have a day job, and that day job is software development. I'm a software developer. I've been a software developer for 17 years. And one of the things that I really have wanted to do now for a while is create a really nice custom website that has all the bells and whistles that I need, has mechanisms for selling my photographs, have better ways to present images to potential clients, faster, more performant website. And so I've already started that. It's going to be probably a year-long process. I have been using a product called Koken, and Koken is a free CRM that's out there that you can actually very easily get up and running with it. But it has a few drawbacks to it. It's not as performant as I want. I ran into several issues trying to upgrade it recently. The blogging mechanism, or I guess the blogging tool set, if you will, or stack, whatever you want to call it, is not robust enough for me. I don't like the way it formats. I don't like the lack of flexibility there, and so I think a custom website's the way to go right now. And so I'm going to spend a lot of hours doing that. And I think hopefully it will pay off. Hopefully it'll be something that's more interesting. So anyway. So, in conclusion on the whole goals thing for 2017 is keep it simple. Concentrate on a few specific things. I think the backyard birding thing is a big point of interest for me because I really want to reinvent myself on that side of things. I think a couple big trips this year would be nice. I can't say that that's a definite thing, but I'm not going to be able to go to Florida this year, and that's something that I usually will fit in. Reason being is I'm actually going to Florida, but I'm taking my family. So we're going to enjoy family time in Florida. I'm not taking any gear with me. I don't want to be tempted. Unfortunately, I will be only a mile or less away from Black Point Wildlife Drive because we will be going to the Kennedy Space Center, which is on the same property as Merritt Island. So that's pretty much all I had on my goals for 2017. Okay, welcome to the Know Your Subject segment. The sound you just heard was that of the American bald eagle. The bald eagle, according to Cornell's Lab of Ornithology, dwarfs most other raptors, including the turkey vulture and the red-tailed hawk. It has a heavy body, large head, and a long, hooked bill. In flight, a bald eagle holds its broad wings flat like a board. Adult bald eagles have white heads and tails and dark brown bodies and wings. Their legs and bills are bright yellow. Immature birds have mostly dark heads and tails. Their brown wings and bodies are mottled with white in varying amounts. Young birds attain adult plumage in about 5 years. You'll find bald eagles soaring high in the sky, flapping low over treetops with slow wing beats, or perched in trees or on the ground. Bald eagles scavenge many meals by harassing other birds or by eating carrion or garbage. They eat mainly fish, but also hunt mammals, gulls, and waterfowl. The bald eagle is an amazing bird. The first time I photographed the bald eagle was actually at Carolina Raptor Center. And one of the things that struck me about the bald eagle was its size, frankly. And then directly after its size was the look that this bird has. It has a look of defiance, a look of strength. And that, I think, is why it was chosen for the American symbol. Yes, the bald eagle is a scavenger. Yes, the bald eagle does eat garbage. But there's just something about this bird. I think you do it a disservice. One of the things I think that kind of bothers me a little bit is how people discredit the bald eagle. Oh, it's a scavenger. It's a junk bird. It steals fish from other birds. You know what? That's the way birds are, folks. Birds are creatures of opportunity. They will fight. They will scrap. I mean, from the songbird all the way up to the raptor. Animals have their own way and their own world, and it's very different from human beings. And when we try to make animals appear human or give them human traits, we do them a great disservice. Okay? Animals are not people. They are animals, and they act the way they act because that's the way God made them. Okay? So don't start subdividing animals into good animals and bad animals and, destructive animals and non-destructive animals. It does no good. Okay, so I have had experience photographing animals and bald eagles in the wild, particularly wild bald eagles. And when I say wild, I mean bald eagles that are not interested in you being anywhere near them. And what I can tell you is this. The way you photograph a bald eagle is you hide. And you don't get too close to their nests. Because if you do, they're gone. They don't put up with people hanging out. And so I recommend caution when photographing them. Do I think you need to be 150 yards away? No, I don't. I think that's a bunch of hogwash. I don't know how that got started. But you certainly don't want to get so close that you're causing the bird discomfort. I have been in a situation where the eagle would not land. And if you're in a situation where the eagle will not land, you are too close. Or you're in a location that the eagle is not comfortable with. Sometimes I've been at a farther distance, but because I'm so visible, the eagle will not land. And it will sit up there and it will basically screech at you until you get out of the area, or unless you're too stupid to get out of the area. What I have found is very effective is just getting into the brush and making yourself as camouflaged as possible. And they seem to be happy with that. They know you're there. They can see you. But for some reason, and I can't fully explain it, when you're hidden like that, they just don't seem to bother with you so much. It's like they know you're not threatening to them for some reason. Actually, I think it might be the National Park Service. It might be a biology site. I can't remember where I saw this. But the recommendation is that when you photograph bald eagles that you should be in some kind of blind. And generally for raptors, that's true. Now, there are times where, you will be in a location where bald eagles are very open to your presence. And if that's the case, enjoy. But if you're in a wild area, if you're in an area that is very pristine and untouched by man, you may find that the bald eagle is very skittish. They have extremely good eyesight. They can see you a long, long way away. And do yourself a favor, get you a ghillie suit, or get you a blind, or get you some brush and get down in there. You will be a lot happier. The bird will be a lot happier. And you'll be able to get some good shots. Okay, that's about all I had for today. I would encourage you to go ahead and check out my latest blog, where I talk a little bit more about my goals for 2017. Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already on iTunes. Let your friends know about it on Facebook and Google and Twitter and Instagram. Help me get the word out. I've noticed our numbers have dropped just a little bit over the last couple months. I'm not overly concerned about that, but just to let you know that, every little bit helps to get the word out. So anyway, I hope you have a great 2017. Thanks for listening. Make it a great day, and get out there and enjoy nature. Bye-bye. Music for this episode was provided by Dr. Turtle.